Hey YouTube, it's Gunted73 making a knife review, and today we're looking at the Strider SnG. Now the SnG is one of those knives that I think that every knife collector should try out at one point or another. It's fairly unique in the knife world. I mean, you have a lot of knives that are hard use, you have a lot of knives that are good for EDC, etc. And the SnG is one of those that fill a lot of roles, really. It's a good all-around knife. And, I mean, it's not too large. It's a medium-sized knife, as you'll see later in the video. And there are a few advantages to the SnG over other knives. And the main one, at least in my mind, is variation. Take any other knife out there. With the exception of maybe Spyderco, Strider has a lot of variation on one design. So the SnG as a knife in and of itself, right? You can have 3 different handle configurations. That's pretty big. That's a big, thing. Not too many knives offer that. I don't think really much do, maybe besides Sebenzas or Chris Reeve. But then you also have a plethora of steel. I mean, you can get Striders in, everything really, which is cool. You have to track them down, but they've been available in everything from S30V, CPM 154, then you have the higher performance steels like Z-Wear, PD1, even things like CTS, XHP, etc. And then you have the different blade shapes. There's a whole bunch of them. This is the basic Strider. It's the Lego handle, so it's the thick blocky one. Has the drop point blade. This one has a very nice stonewash finish. The tiger stripe tie, black G10, CPM 154. So I mean, it's a very basic knife in terms of Striders, but it's nothing bad. It's just it's nothing exotic. At least mine isn't. And a few things. If you're used to Spydercos, then the Strider is opening it and closing it, it's fairly second nature. This opening oval here makes it's really easy to open the knife. You can do the middle finger flick, you can slowly open it with your thumb, you can flick it open nice and easy, no big deal. One of the best things about Strider, in my opinion, and one reason why you can justify paying the price for one of these, because this is a $400 knife, is the warranty. It's pretty much, as long as you don't modify the knife in any way, shape, or form, and that even goes down to polishing the screws, that voids the warranty. As long as you don't modify the knife, it's covered against everything. So if you do something stupid and break it, they'll replace it. So that in and of itself is, in my opinion, one of those things where I'm not really afraid to beat the shit out of this knife. Plus, it can take it. It has a fairly thick blade, which I'll show against some other popular knives. But when I used my calipers on this, it was about 0.17, which is thick. That's thicker than a Spyderco Military, that's thicker than a ZTO 550, etc. But even though it's so thick, this one has a nice thin lean grind, so it still cuts pretty well because of this very high flat grind. It's not full flat. You can see there's a little shoulder right there, but it's practically a full flat grind. The other thing too with this is its shape is very unique. There aren't too many other knives that have this angular handle. And the other nice thing too is how it's narrower right here. The handle gets larger. So when you're holding it like this, it doesn't want to slip out of your hand. It's pretty much locked in. The jimping on this is very aggressive and very big and wide, which is nice. You can hold it back here without the choil, and I can still get a decent grip on it. But with the choil, you have a little bit of extra handle there, and your thumb is directly on that jimping. You can see this, the blade is, minimal markings. Just says Strider on this side, and then on the other side, it has the wings and the sword logo. And this one says the steel, CPM 154, and it's made in USA, San Marcos, California to be precise. One big dig that people give Striders is the massive finger choil. Now, I sort of thought that too for a while, I remember a ways back, I had my small Sebenza, which I ironically traded for this. And I was comparing it against the Strider SMF, which is Spyderco military size. It's even larger than this. It has a 4-inch blade. And I was comparing the cutting edges. And the cutting edge on a small Sebenza is the same as the cutting edge on the Strider SMF, I noticed, approximately. You know, I thought, well, why would anyone want the Strider? You can get the same amount of cutting edge on a smaller platform. But the thing is it gives you a lot of handle. I have big hands, so even the Strider SnG, I have, you know, a lot of extra handle sticking out there, which is good, and a lot of control. And the other thing too is, let's just get another knife out here for an example. The Les George VECP. So you compare the cutting edges on these, you say, well, VECP has more. Not going to lie about that. It's one of those things, though, where, you know, how often are you using this last little bit of edge right here? It's not too often. For me, I'm usually like that. I'm using the tip of the knife, the belly, I'll pierce into something and cut. You know, so the Strider, I haven't had any problems not being able to cut something because it has smaller cutting edge, at least for me. Some people might, if they're doing stuff way back here, they're cutting in like deep into something, but I don't have a problem personally. One nice thing is this knife features a lock bar stabilizer. You can see mine is different. I swapped it out in the last video I made for a peat gray titanium one. The original one, there it is. It's fairly plain. It's steel. It's magnetic. It works just fine. I just wanted to give my knife a bit more spice. The flame on the titanium is really cool and unique. I don't know of too many other knives, production knives at least, that have this type of finish. And I like how it bleeds over. So this is done by hand, and you can tell. And I really like how that looks overall. The lock on this is a Generation 7 SnG. And the lock on this features their new lock geometry. Tight lockup. It has this massive pivot, which you need a special tool to adjust, but I don't really need to adjust mine, so it's not a big deal. External stop pin. You can use it to flick the knife open, but I find the thumb hole, oval, whatever, easier to use. And the lanyard hole is kind of weird. The blade sort of, you know, intersects it. I don't really use lanyards, so it's not a big deal to me. Have some more jimping back here for the reverse grip. That's cool. Sorry about the camera bump. Overall, I think it's just a great knife. And one that everyone should try, considering it's part of the big three, or the trinity, or whatever you want to call it, you know, of Strider, Hinderer, and Chris Reeve. So, let's get some size comparisons here out of the way. Probably the one knife that this is compared to the most, even though they're not that similar, is the Chris Reeve Sebenza. Oh, sorry about that. This is a large Sebenza. They're about the same size, as you can see. SnG is a lot lighter weight, that's for sure. That's one thing that's really nice about it, is it's a very lightweight knife. You can see it's thicker. Lock bar cutout on the outside. I'm going to keep that open. And the G10 is really grippy too, on the Strider. On this one at least. Les George VECP. Similarly sized as well. The SnG is a lot lighter weight than the VECP. The VECP is a heavy knife. Not like a brick or anything, but it's a chunky one, that's for sure. And I'm just slipping away. One thing with the Strider, it's a bit you have to get used to. The pocket clip is really tight. And since the lock bar cutout is on the outside, when you put it in your pocket and you're pulling it out, the material gets bunched up right there. So, I mean, it's not coming out of your pocket accidentally, but at the same time, you know, it is, you have to yank on it to get it out. So, be conscious of that. I suppose you could bend the clip out, but I prefer to have my knife safe in my pocket. Against the Paramilitary 2, about the same size as well. ZTO 550. A lot of people will say, well, why should I get the Strider when I can get something like this? First off, this is the only way you can get this knife. Well, maybe with the black blade, but options are limited. This is a heavy knife compared to this. It's significantly heavier. The blade on the SnG is thicker, but the tie is thicker on the 0550. But the important thing, the lock bar cutout, the Strider has a thicker cutout. So even though this is slightly thinner, this knife is stronger. Plus with the bigger pivot, I'd say to give the edge to this knife. Not that this is bad, but this is probably stronger and lighter, and I don't know, it's a bit nicer, it's more exclusive. I mean, some people might not care about that, but you know, as a knife collector, it's one of those things that's in your mind. You know, and that's completely personal, perhaps snobbish, but whatever. And my Raylock and Eco Jasmine, you can see it's a bit smaller than the SnG, and something larger, good old Spyderco Military, big knife compared to the SnG. So overall, I'd if someone were to say to me, Matt, would you recommend me a Strider SnG? I'd say, if you're in these kind of knives, I'd say that it's worth trying out. I had for a long time a negative view of Strider because of their past, you know, what they've done in terms of military service and telling the truth and all that. But it's one of those things where, you know, they didn't personally harm me in any way. They've said they're sorry, and they donate a lot to veterans and associations. They give a lot of knives away to soldiers. And then just talking with them, you know. I mean, one of the main reasons, the thing that turned me around was, as I said before, my long conversation with Dwayne Dwyer at Blade. Just talking about, and the guy, when you see a name on a screen or whatever, it's really impersonal. But when you're standing there in front of the guy and you can just see how passionate about knives he is, he's like, I believe that I make the best knife. You know, and if it is, it's completely subjective. But based on his idea of what a knife is, he's made the best knife in his mind. You know, is this the best knife? No. There is no best knife, in my opinion. But just to see how passionate he was, to see that he's willing to try new steels, to, you know, dare a little bit, I guess you could say, you know, it was really just like, wow, this guy knows his stuff, and he really likes what he's doing. I could get behind a maker like that. So, that's why I got this. And it's been in my pocket pretty much nonstop. It and the VECP have been my main EDCs. So, I mean, it's one of those things where I didn't expect that, but sometimes you just have to, you know, try something different in regards to your hobby, and you'll be pleasantly surprised. So, Strider SnG, a great knife, and I think that every knife nut should try it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next video.